Okay, it's 12:01, everybody. I hope you've got a nice beverage, cup of tea maybe, or a Coke Light, I don't know, and your lunch. Thank you everyone for joining us for this. Some of you I know from the healthcare work that I do with healthcare practitioners, and some of you have been in the Leaders Library for other read-alongs before, and for some of you this is the first time. And so welcome to everybody. I'm going to take a minute or two just to introduce the concept of a read-along so that you know what on earth we're up to. And then I'll hand over to Talana. So as you know, the platform is called the Leaders Library, and this is essentially a training community or a training platform, and we are creating community of leaders who like to read and healthcare practice owners who want to lead their practices better. And that's really what this community was created for. And we run read-alongs. So the read-alongs that we've run this year, we've run 6 or 7 of them. But generally, we always start the year with how to grow your small business. So if you are running a small business and you're struggling to grow it, then look out for that one starting next year. And then we work our way through books that support business owners and business leaders and managers. So this particular book, Crucial Conversations, obviously supports anybody in business. In fact, it's just a life skill. But we know that there is a very little support sometimes given to people who have to learn how to have these types of conversations. And so when Talana joined the Leaders Library and she saw Crucial Conversations was in the lineup coming soon, she was like, that's the one I want to host. So I'm always open to people hosting read-alongs and collaborating with me. I'm all about collaboration. I would much rather collaborate with people than compete with people. Collaboration over competition every single time. So Talana put her hand up, and then we decided to run just one more read-along for 2024. So we are running Crucial Conversations. So in the Leaders Library, if I can just get my mouse to cooperate with me. Thank you very much, mouse. In the Leaders Library, how do they work? If you read a book and you just read it, or you just listen to it as an audiobook, and that's it, you actually only retain around 10 to 20% of what you have read. However, if you read a book experientially, then you retain 70%. So experiential reading would be reading through a book and then having a conversation around what you've read with others who are reading the same book. And that's essentially what a read-along is. But we want to take it one step further, and after every single session, we give you application for the week. And we ask you to take what was in the chapters that we've read and to go and apply it in your own life, in your work, in your relationships, in wherever you're having to have these crucial conversations. And we ask that people go and practice what they've read, because if you do that, the retention boosts up to 90%. And now that is a return on investment. If you're going to spend time reading or listening to a book, if you're into audiobooks, I would much rather retain and keep 90% of what I've read than merely 70%, and definitely more than 20%. So this is why we created the Leaders Library, so that people can read books, can network, can activate the learning, and really get on with it, connect, read, and lead. So how does it work? So firstly, we join the community. You're already all in the community. If you've managed to find this link, you've joined the community. But if you see a read-along that you are interested in and that you would like to join, you click on the link that says ready to join. And as soon as that read-along starts, we'll notify you when it's starting. So this read-along is starting next week. Officially, it starts next week. And so you would buy the book any format you like, Audible, in hard copy, it doesn't matter. You just get hold of the book and start reading with us, chat with us as we go through the book. And then you come to the group coaching sessions. And in the group coaching sessions, the facilitator, who's Talana this time around, we'll take you through some of the highlights of the particular chapters that we've prescribed, and then we'll talk about them as a group, and you'll get to then lead with that knowledge in your conversations, lead with that knowledge in your workplace, in your personal life, in your community, wherever you are having to have those types of conversations. So that's how a read-along works. Read-alongs produce results. So we find that 9 out of 10 people who start a read-along do finish with us. And we also find that 10 out of 10 of the people who have participated in read-alongs say that it has made a significant difference to their environment and to their work. Regardless of which read-along we have been in, everybody has thoroughly enjoyed them. And they've made a difference. So I don't know where else you could get Crucial Conversations training for 1,247 Rand. In fact, I don't think anywhere else. I don't even think you get group coaching for that. So this really is a labor of love. We do it because we love it, and there are a few bills that need to get paid, and so that's why we charge the nominal amount for it. But people we've worked with lots of different people. We've worked with physios, we've worked with GPs, we've worked with middle managers, we've worked with business owners. And read-alongs do serve a purpose, and they serve a purpose for all walks of life. So these are some of the books that we've done over the last year. Some of them are also still coming up. We didn't manage to do Dare to Lead this year, so we would like to do that again we'll try to do that again next year. Building a Story Brand, we also didn't manage to squeeze in this year, so we'll probably get that into the first half of 2025. But we will definitely be doing Grow Your Small Business again next year early. So who are we? Let's just quickly introduce ourselves. I'm Anne Gray. I'm the founder of the Leaders Library, and I own a consulting and coaching business called The Solutioneers. And we help people solve business problems in their businesses by professionalizing their operations. And sometimes that's just coaching the business owner through that process. And sometimes it's getting stuck in and doing some of the dirty work. I'm a fan of doing the work myself and walking the journey with my clients. So that's who I am. Talana, would you like to say a little bit about who you are?
Sure, yeah, I'm Talana Simpson. I'm a courage coach, and I have a keen passion and interest in communication, and specifically courageous communication. So very interested in this subject because I believe that we can actually change our experience of the world and the world around us by the kind of quality of communication, of conversations that we have. So I do a lot of group work and masterminds and master classes, as well as one-on-one work, all around how do we be more courageous in our lives and businesses and communication.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Talana. Okay, so if you are interested in joining a read-along now, next year, whenever, all you need to do is find the read-along in this list under read-alongs, and then click on the read-along that you are interested in joining and request to join. And when that read-along starts, we will notify you that it's starting. If you want to join this particular read-along, at the end of the session, there will be a link for you to sign up. So you can look out for that. Once you are in the read-along, you find the weekly events, and then there's a little button at the bottom of the screen that says Add to Calendar. And then you add that event to your calendar, whether you use an Apple Calendar or a Microsoft Calendar. There's all those options, and then you are sure to have diarized and prioritize the time for the weekly coaching calls. For this particular read-along of Crucial Conversations, there are 6 coaching calls. So from next week, for 6 weeks, we will be going along. And then we engage with the content in the platform as well. So there is a feed, and people, when they find interesting things around the conversation, will go and make little posts and say what they noticed and keep the discussion going through the week. So we can encourage each other and hold one another accountable to actually following through with some of the actions and activities that we have committed to doing. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, if I can work on how to do that. And I'm going to hand over to Talana now. Oh, there we go. Stop share. Hand over to Talana, who is going to introduce the book, excuse me, introduce the book to us and give us a bit of an overview in terms of why this book is helpful and who should read it. Over to you, Talana. You are still muted.
So where am I now? Which screen have I got here? There we go. Okay, can you hear me and see the screen? Yeah, you've got the text. So yes, here we are at our introduction to this crucial book. Really, it's one of the, for me, in all what I've learned about communication, it is like the best book I've come across. So I'm so excited to share it in this format. And just to get us going and understanding why I'm so excited about this book, I want to just ask you to think about a problem you're having right now. Whatever that is, whether it's in your business, your personal life, your own journey in some way, just you're welcome to share in the chat if you want to, just a high level of what it is, or just to think about it, like what kind of business, what kind of problem is it that you're having? Where in your life is it? Does this problem involve other people, or because there aren't people involved, that's why it's a problem? So just getting a sense of the kind of challenge that you may be having, and really it's any challenge, just to take you on this journey of thinking. Because the next question to ask with you, when you've got that in mind, that problem, is what is the problem due to? What do you think is behind or contributing to that problem? So there's usually something else that's going on behind it. And if you look further at that problem, is there an impact of it? Does it affect your productivity in terms of your business being able to do what you need to do? Are there actual costs to it? And costs are not only financial, often it's costs on time, of energy, of our mental, emotional capacity. So obviously why we call it a problem is because there's usually some kind of impact that it's having on it. And then I wanted to get to the question of how much of that problem is actually due to these kind of issues, in that maybe you don't have clarity about what the actual issue is, what's causing it. Maybe you couldn't answer some of those questions. Or maybe especially, and I'm pretty sure if anyone wants to share in the chat, I can see something there. Yeah, thanks. And also already shared some problem about customers owing money, and that's so how much of that problem is due to no teamwork. In other words, the other people involved are not participating. They're not doing their part of the deal. Maybe they're slacking off, or you're slacking off. And usually there's also some kind of emotion around. Like Anne shared that she doesn't want to ruin the friendship. There's a lot of emotion, I'm sure, around that kind of feeling. So my point in asking all of this is because probably what's underlying all of that problem and why it's become a problem is because there's a communication failure in some way that has led to or is contributing to a relationship failure. So something is breaking down in your relationship to the people that are involved or should be involved in that issue, and are not. And more often than not, if there's a breakdown in a relationship, it's due to a breakdown in communication. And so what I wanted to share with that is just that so much of the problems that we are facing today actually involve, a huge part of it involves the quality of conversation that we are having around what we are trying to achieve and do, and how we're trying to literally just live and engage with this world. And And then in Crucial Conversations, they've shared some of these statistics that they found within people, the workforce, that they did some of their research. There's a group of, it's 4 actually authors, so they've done a lot of research in this book. But they found that 43% of the people that they engaged with actually could say that they spent about 2 weeks of their time. And I realized I don't have the quantity of time, but I'm sure it's within a year, 2 weeks ruminating about unresolved issues. So in other words, within all your work time, you are spending, if it's like 10 days times 8 hours a day, all of your focus is on whatever that issue is, that unresolved issue. That's a lot of wasted time, I think. And also, they said for every 3 people that they engaged with in the research, 1 out of every 3 found they were unable to speak up in those crucial moments. And they put a cost to it of $25,000, which is roughly around $500,000, 500,000 rands. So there's a lot of time lost, because people are not speaking up at the crucial moments. There can be a big impact when we feel like we're not able to say or ask a question or point out a mistake that's about to be made. So 1 in 3 people that find it, that they're unable to speak up, has a huge impact financially and in the consequences of it. The solution, well, the solution would hopefully be around having more clarity of what the actual issue is, what needs to be said, where the misunderstanding is, but also more understanding and respect. So respect helps us to engage with each other and develop understanding and speak up. And that leads to better teamwork and more trust between people. And the pathway to creating those conditions is Crucial Conversations. And Crucial Conversations, its main purpose of having this quality of dialogue is that it leads to better understanding and clarity of what the issue is, and while maintaining the actual relationship, keeping the respect intact as we have these difficult conversations. So we're more able to actually communicate what we need to and hear the other person, what they need to communicate. And more often than not, there is an amazing quality of bonding that comes from when a crucial conversation is held in the best possible way. When you actually can go through a process with another person where you can maintain the relationship, maintain the respect, and come out of it more clear on what the issues are and a way forward and better understanding, you actually definitely can improve the relationship. So what is a crucial conversation? If you think about it, we have a lot of conversations during the day and we need to make a lot of decisions. But if you like taking the family out and we've got to decide what type of takeaways we're going to get for that night, that's not really a crucial kind of conversation or issue or decision making. But there are many times during the day where there is, I reference it like a crucial moment. There's a moment where something tricky or very important needs to be processed, dealt with, engaged with. So those are where these crucial conversations come in. And part of learning how to have them is to be able to identify when we need to shift into crucial conversation mode. And there's 3 basic attributes. That's when the first one is when the stakes are high. So there is something really important, and it may not be to all the parties, but someone in the room, someone in that relationship, there is a high stake, really significant issue or decision or experience, right? It's important to someone. And there's opposing views, there's differences. So maybe someone else doesn't think it's as important as the other person. And because it's so important, and often because there's opposing views, there's there will be strong emotions that come up. And it's usually because of the strong emotions that we fear these conversations. We try to stay away. The other reason we try to stay away from them is because they're so important. The stakes are so high. If we do it wrong, which has usually been our experience, unless you've managed to master crucial conversations. But often our experience is that these conversations can go really bad, and we can then damage the relationship and not come to a solution. So crucial conversations are those times where the stakes are high, there's differences or variety of variance in the opinions of all the people involved, and the emotions are really strong in some way. That's a signal for you that a crucial conversation needs to take place. And yes, just in terms of work environment, this is also, for me, just some signals of when we need to learn how to have these conversations. If we are experiencing a lot of low morale or poor customer satisfaction or reduced quality, there's a lot of topics that are taboo that in your company or your business, your family, you're just not allowed to talk about those. There's office politics, there's lots of disagreement, people feel alienated, there's analysis paralysis, all those kind of things usually are indications that the quality of the dialogue, of the conversation, is not the most constructive. And even in our home lives, our personal lives, usually financial discussions, when we have to come up with budgets or saving goals with other people in the family, or we need to set boundaries or make decisions around medical care for someone, or there's the parent-child kind of issues, we need to resolve conflicts. Two parents have different styles and how they want to parent their children. Work-life balance, too much work or not enough work or not enough time at home, different responsibilities. All of those are times when we probably need to be having more of these crucial conversations, as Anne calls them, red flags that the quality of our communication is not helping us. And who needs to have them? Well, especially in the workforce, anyone who's leading, managing others, when you are the person who actually has to set the tone almost, who has to make sure things are delivered on time, and a group of people need to work together. This is a skill that would be really, and I love that they keep saying the word crucial, but it really is important for us to have this kind of skill as a leader, as a manager, as a professional. We are always going to come up with this, like Anne was just explaining with clients. We can even have the need for crucial conversations. As parents, as life partners, husbands, wives, partners in any way, even with our friends, we have it. So basically, to me, the two categories is anyone who has to deal with conflict, feedback, or negotiation. And that's if you are in a position of leading others or working with others, you are going to be in that person that has to deal with that. Or if you are in a relationship. And this is my whole point, is that we are all in relationship with someone. So it actually is a skill that we all need. It's a life skill. It's a relationship skill, being able to have quality communications. So if I don't know if there's any questions or comments, if you resonate with anything I've said or we understand, hopefully I've set the picture to try and explain how important our ability to have quality conversations is, but also how most problems, if you go back to that problem I suggested you just think of, more than likely, if you start to unpack it, underneath it is some kind of communication or relationship problem issue. It's if the solution would be to fix the relationship or fix the communication. So yes, so how do we have these conversations? I wanted to share a bit about, give you an overview of the actual book, just hopefully to just tease you enough, to give you enough insight to understand how powerful this book is, because the authors were actually doing research for something totally different. They were looking for what are those vital behaviors that lead to productivity. And what they uncovered in their research, and they literally interviewed and did research on tens of thousands of people. So this is not just like a small sample size. But they found that the people who were most productive and got the most had the most impact within business were the ones that were able to effectively communicate. And that's where they came up with this whole concept of crucial conversations and the skills involved in it. And so this book is just so wonderful in that they've been able to simplify what seems like a very complex skill that we need in life, but also give us cute little ways, if you want to call it, of how to remember the different skills, the different tools that if we are aware of them, we're more likely able to use them in the moments, in those crucial moments. And the first part of how we can do this is to actually believe that it is possible to have a conversation with someone where it's a both and, where you can protect the relationship, even improve the relationship, and address the issue. I think we've grown up and been exposed to a lot of poor communication, where we see the only way that to get something is to push for it, or you just, to keep the peace, you have to be quiet. So you never get the issue resolved if you want to protect the relationship. But if you want the issue resolved, then you're going to have to forfeit the relationship. So crucial conversations is actually a way to actually show you that it can happen. And that's a starting point, is if you believe. And this book, to me, and my experience of it is showing you that there is a way that we can have the most difficult, tricky conversations in a way that still maintains and even usually grows the relationship and addresses the issue. So with that in mind as a belief, and obviously there's a lot of other beliefs that we cover in the first section of the book. The other aspect about it, why it's such a useful resource is, and why we wanted to offer this read along and help people learn this skill, is it's much more useful to know about these frameworks, these strategies, these techniques you can use before you're in a crucial moment, because then it's very difficult when you're in the crucial moment. You often get triggered and we get out of constructive dialogue. If you're not aware of and don't have like the meta understanding of what the structure is of conversation, it's very difficult then to be able to step out of that and step back in and turn things into a healthy, constructive conversation. We usually just get triggered and get into what they call fight flight, and then it just ends up as an explosion, or you go silent and nothing gets resolved, and you're left feeling awful afterwards. Yeah, Anne says, you can't unsay the things you've said in that moment. But if you have learned and understand this, so it's almost like we have a meta perspective. We're stepping out of having difficult conversations, learning about it, so that in the moment you have tools in your toolkit. You can actually identify and pick up when the signs that this is going south, and then you also know how to turn it around. So it's very useful to learn this kind of framework and this understanding before. And then part of the read along is obviously in the application. We know for sure, I can tell you from my experience, there will be a crucial conversation or 2 or 3 or plenty during the 6 weeks that you will need to be having. So there'll be plenty of time. Life will bring you the chances to practice this. But with the idea of understanding it, you are going to be able to put into practice these ideas in a step-by-step way, building on all the skills, and afterwards feel way more confident in your ability to handle a crucial conversation. So this is actually, if they had to put the whole book into a diagram, that's what the diagram looks like. I'm not going to go into too much detail because that's what we're going to be doing over the read along, and it's in the book and that. But I thought I've just given you just breaking down some of the key points, the key understandings from the book, giving you just an overview, but it will also give you enough information to understand that there is a structure and hopefully create that belief that there is another way that we can have these important conversations. So the first is they talk about in crucial conversations, there's a pool of meaning. And what that is if you think about it, we all have a different understanding of things, a different meaning, and we also all have things that we valued differently. We have a different, what's important to me may not be important to you or to whoever else is in the conversation. But for us to get to a solution and to create understanding, we need to create the environment where we can all put our meaning into the same pool, the same, like a soup, you know what I mean? Put all the ingredients there to see what is there. I talk about putting it on the table. If something is not said or shared, if it's kept, it's held back, the other people in that relationship or in that issue do not have all the information they need in order to make the best decisions. And that's usually what we're talking about is crucial moments are when some form of decision needs to be made in terms of how we're going to move forward. And if you don't have all the information and the most clean, clear, factual kind of quality information at your disposal, you're less likely to make the best decision. So the pool of meaning is understanding that the whole point of, and they talk about dialogue, this quality type of having a dialogue is that it allows everybody to put into the pool their version of the meaning so that you have all the data and can make a better informed decision from it. So with that understanding, the place to start is they talk about starting with heart. And the first place is you always start with yourself before the other person. Start with yourself before us, as they call it, I think. And one is we need a level of self-awareness. We need to know what triggers us in terms of when things don't go too well. What are our triggers? And then what is our style of dealing with stress? So they talk about two styles as being silence or the violence. The silent kind of style is the one that tries to keep the peace, that will hold back their views, that will give up, will compromise, versus violence is the style when it's stressful that they just want to argue their point, they need to win, they need to push their agenda, their decision, their style through it. So we usually have a tendency to one or the other, or we can maybe be silent, silent, silent until it gets to a point and then we fly over to violence. And what's behind that is the stress response in the body of the fight, flight, or freeze mode, which is when we find something is not safe or it's very stressful, which remember high stakes moment, it's high stakes, high emotion, and various opinions that are usually opposing each other, that is a great condition for us to feel unsafe. We are more likely to go and our adrenaline kicks in, we lose the ability, our frontal cortex ability, we can't think rationally and process information, and we go into our default mode of silence or violence. So first is to understand that and what the triggers might be for that so that you have more choice, because we want to step out of that response. That leads to what they call the fool's choice, by the way. The fool's choice is also believing there's only one way or the other way, that we can either forget about the relationship, I'm just going to push my agenda here, or I'm going to let go of my agenda and try and maintain the relationship. That's what they talk about, the fool's choice. So having awareness of what our natural style is. And then also the other part of starting with heart is to be very clear on your own intentions in having this crucial conversation. So we need to get into, and usually what triggers us is when our intentions are not coming from our heart, as they call it. They're not for the good of ourselves, the good of the other person, and the good of the whole community or system that we're in. When we're trying to win or to defeat the other, to push an agenda, that's usually not a very useful intention to have. So we start with heart, is the whole point about learning about our self-awareness and how to manage ourselves better so that our best self can present, and we get in touch with our highest intention for the relationship and the conversation. What is it we're really, really trying to achieve here? When we've got in touch with that, we also need to learn the skill of look to learn. So this is about not only looking, so being aware, observant of our own triggers and what's happening within us when we get emotional, being able to have that meta awareness, that higher awareness that says, oh, I think I'm being triggered here, and I've noticed I'm going silent or violent, and being able to then adjust for that. But it's also to look at the other person, notice and learn and be curious about signals. So instead of when you see someone becoming defensive, is just trying to say, oh, you mustn't be defensive, like that kind, don't get defensive. It's to, as you'll see, they give us a lot of tools on how to shift that. But the point is more here to be curious and really be able to step aside and notice when the emotions are high. What are those stress signs? What are those signs in another person and ourselves that says we've gone into stress mode and we're more leaning towards the behaviors of being silence or violence? And part of that is they try to differentiate the two things that can lead us to, which will be in part 3, which is around safety, is the actual content of what the discussion is about versus the conditions within which we are having this conversation. And that is really important to be able to track those different things. Is it the content that is leading to stress, or perhaps there's a condition that's not being met, which is part of the next step, which is about making it safe. When we don't feel safe, we are going to go into protection mode, the fight-flight mode, and we're going to choose to either be silent or violent or exit the conversation, the relationship. So part of the skill is being able to look, to learn, to notice that, but then also how do we make it safe again? As soon as we are out of safety or the conditions don't feel safe, to express all the different opinions to add to the pool of meaning, right? When we don't feel safe to do that, then we are less likely to be having a dialogue, and we're more likely to go into the less useful forms of communication. So we need that step out skill to be able to step out of it and say, let's just pause a moment. And to check then, is it that it's no longer safe because the people involved don't feel that we have the right intention? The purpose of this is to humiliate the other person or to belittle them or to stop their projects or whatever it is that's going on? Or have we lost respect? Does a person feel that you are not respecting them as an individual? Is respecting their ideas. So they make the distinction in the book about understanding whether it's purpose or respect that has been, so it's almost like the issue versus the relationship. What is it that is no longer feeling safe that is leading to these signals? And they give the skill of contrasting, which is the don't and do statements, which is a great tip. If you can take this away from you, is to, whenever there's things are not safe, it's to acknowledge, like, was not my intention to make you feel like your contribution is not valued. My intention was actually to acknowledge your good contribution, but to make it even better by pointing out a gap in the quality or something, like, whatever that is. So the contrasting is a very interesting skill that helps us bring back a level of safety once we've done that and found a mutual purpose. So you contrast, and then you go into a process where you with that other person, come up with a purpose for having this conversation that both parties or all parties agree on. It's amazing when everyone feels like, okay, we're on the same page with why we're discussing this content. It creates then the conditions to open us back up for that quality dialogue. And then if we've got, that kind of sets the scene, that makes the environment, the conditions right for the dialogue, we can then actually present our side of the story. And they talk about this as mastering our stories and then stating our path. So understanding that often when we are triggered, when we have an emotion, and this also is for other people, the high emotion is telling you that there is a misunderstanding or an assumption at place. And they talk about something happens, you see or hear something. Often we misinterpret it because we all have different meanings to things. We start telling ourselves a story about what that behavior or that misunderstanding actually means. We feel a certain way from that story, and then we start acting from that feeling. So we need to, that part of work, starting with ourselves first, is learning how to master our own stories, being aware of, is this an actual fact, or is this a story I'm telling myself about something, a fact? And obviously our emotions are wonderful signals that help us unpack, whether it's something in our head, our story, or in the actual territory, the actual thing is happening. And then we can state our perspective, and they use this STATE as an acronym, which is their way of how you actually put your suggestion forward. It's a very tentative, saying to the person, this is what I see has happened. So you're saying some facts, you explain the story, you're asking questions for that other person about their version. You actually can't remember now the STATE, but they give us a wonderful structure of how to state the path, your version of it. And then the next part is obviously explore the other person's path, inviting them to also state, using that same framework, their story, their opinion, their version, getting some facts from them, getting some understanding of what it means for them. And this whole chapter is mostly about listening. So as you can see, a big part of Crucial Conversations is not just about you doing the talking, but it's also you being in the right space, the right mindset, and having the ability to truly listen to the person. And all of this, when we talk about, is to create a better pool of meaning. So we have as much information, facts and stories all put together. Doesn't mean you have to agree with the other person. Remember, the opinions vary. It's more that each opinion is heard and understood, because then you can actually do something with it. So listening in a way that invites the other to share their stories and their person is part of the skill of having these crucial conversations. As Anne says, the story we are telling ourselves becomes our truth and not the actual truth. Yeah, Brené Brown talks a lot about this, and she has this technique of literally working out what your story is and what facts are, and going to the person saying, and I think in Crucial Conversations, they also suggest you actually use the words, the story I am telling myself is, whatever it is. Is this your intention? Is this what you experienced? What is it that I'm missing? Yeah. And we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should be listening way more than we are talking. Absolutely. So we've shared our side. We've asked for the other people to share their path. We're always checking for those signals of when things become unsafe. That's usually when there's signs of violence or silence. We have a strategy to get us back to, and that's one of the most important steps of how a crucial conversation can go wrong, is if we don't notice and then restore the sense of safety. So having those skills and understanding what you can do when you notice that moment is very, very useful in doing that. And now we've explored, we've got a better quality pool of meaning. Now we can actually move to action because everyone's feeling safe. We all feel heard. We don't necessarily agree, but we have a way better understanding. But now we can work on a way forward. And they actually say the first part of this is again going meta. So having a higher level quality dialogue with the people involved in this conversation about how you are going to decide. You actually verbally put it on the table and make it conscious of how we all need to agree on how we will make a decision related to this issue, whether it's voting or majority or by consulting someone else or just consensus, whatever way they list a few of ways that decisions are made. And then once you've all decided, you get very clear. It's important that the actions have a sense of clarity, because that's obviously what we're going for, right? Clarity and understanding so that we can resolve this and move forward. And literally got to come up with who's going to do what by when. And also if that person slips up or is not able to or doesn't follow through on what they were going to do by when, how will we hold them accountable? How will we check in and follow through with them again? It's another crucial conversation about following up. But from that clarity, what's that bonding that happens in this process, they found that most people buy into whatever that final solution is. Everyone agrees on who's going to do what by when, and therefore there's way more participation in actually implementing. Hence the better quality relationships, teamwork, more productivity, and a better kind of environment. So sure, that's kind of like in a nutshell what this wonderful book explains and gives us this framework for. And in the read along, we are going to be doing these, and there's a few sections chapters we do together, but obviously through over 6 weeks is enough to really get into the depths of this, learn the skills, apply them to a crucial conversation that you may be putting off and you want to have over these 6 weeks. So that I just put the step 9 in terms of this read along is really helping you to apply this, not only just understanding, breaking into steps and stages in terms of reading, but giving you suggestions of exercises to do, of celebrating as we check in, each week we check in with what you did manage to implement, the ahas you've had, the learnings. The failures to me are just how we learn. Where if you tried something and it slipped up, and we can maybe unpack what would have shifted it or what you missed or what, because all of that is how, as Anne explained, we learn this experientially in our day-to-day lives. And with this kind of framework of a read along, which is why I was so excited and asked Anne if I could be part of it, it really gives us the momentum. I think every week is enough momentum to keep it going, to hold you accountable to actually do the reading, because I don't know about you, but how many books are next to your bed that are half read? This will help you hold you accountable to actually do the reading, and it's very easy reading actually. And with the homework, if you want to call it that, the actions is to actually apply it in your day-to-day life so that you gain and learn and develop the muscle memory, the actual ability, the skills to come out with this. So are there any questions then about the book, about the theory? I'm going to just let you just think about it. If you've got any questions, to raise your hand, or just let us know in the chat. I'd really happy to answer any questions of what I've just shared. I know I've been talking a lot, but if there was just one thing you take away from this session today, this introductory, if you want to help yourself to shift out of that fight-flight mode when you feel triggered, when you notice this is a crucial moment and you need to have a crucial conversation, the most important thing that helps to shift things is to get into that was a checking with your heart. What do you want? And it's not just that initial, or just making this conscious to yourself. Do you want revenge? Well, then that gives you the awareness that you are going to more than likely have a very awful conversation, and is going to lead to the violence or silence from both sides. But often if you realize that is what you've been triggered in that moment, you just want to make sure this person hears your view, doesn't matter what happens. If you can acknowledge that, you are then able to say, hold on, actually, what I really want. So it's to go notice in your intention that moment when you triggered, and then shift it to what do you really want? Because everyone I've ever spoken to about this, and every time I've checked in with myself, what I actually really want is to solve the issue and maintain the relationship. And when you get to that, when you can access and put it in a word that is related to that relationship, it shifts your energy, it shifts your attitude, it shifts the mood in the room, it shifts the way you approach that person. So even if you have none of the other skills, that change of you accessing your intention and then verbalizing it, letting the person know, my intention here is actually to find a way that we can work together and improve our communication and our relationship. It takes that person out of their triggered state, and they're more likely able to access more resourceful thinking, and you will have a better quality conversation. So I hope that that is your takeaway, if nothing else. But great, it's wonderful to hear that there's some takeaways from it. As I saw and it put into the chat there, we do have our going to take you through this journey. I would love for you to join us. Have a think about it. Do click on the link and sign up. It's really going to be interesting as a group to go through this and to be able to share our experiences, because we learn so much by hearing other people's experience, as well as there's something about us verbalizing our learnings and our struggles as we go. So it's going to be a very supportive learning environment. And really, we're going to bring as much fun as we can to learn this crucial skill of how to have quality, courageous conversations that lead us to improve things in our life. So yeah, there's the link. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to contact Anne or myself, Anne at solutioneers.co.za, Talana at innercoaching.co.za. And I don't know if there's something else I can.
No, I mean, we
Also
was
sharing.
So I wondered if anybody who was had any questions, or yeah, just open the floor to any questions or comments. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to even just hear your takeaways from this session. If you don't have a question, but maybe what did you find insightful there? Cheryl said crucial conversations affect every aspect of our lives, and it's yeah, they do. And I think the more you explore this concept and actually think about it, just step out of your life and look at whatever challenges you're facing, there's usually a conversation, a lack of clarity and understanding. And having this is just, to me, it should be a life skill. I wish they would teach it at school.
So, funnily enough, the Gordon Institute of Business Science, where I did my master's, they actually have an MBA elective that is the Crucial Conversations elective. And they spend 3 or 4 days, however long an elective is,
wow,
just this book. And so this is like an MBA skill that people have done. And when I did mine, I didn't choose this particular elective, and the guys that did this book said it was the best elective they did. And so, and that's actually what put it into my reading list, was the fact that it had been so well received by those MBA students. So definitely, I mean, not just for business, but also for life, just navigating life in general.
And just to point out, also we're going to be using the latest version. It's the 3rd edition, and there's a whole section or a whole lot of references to virtual conversations, because the whole business world has moved so much online, and we do so much through Slack and WhatsApp and all of those other things. It's going to be very interesting for us to apply all of this to those conversations, those as well.
Yeah, actually, I think that's brilliant that they've updated the book to really work with people who are like decentralized teams and no longer co-located. I think that's really important. Yeah. So that's really great. The other thing that the book says, I mean, I haven't read the previous editions, so I can't comment, but they've kind of reordered the book to anchor everything around that framework that you showed. That pool of shared meaning framework. So now it sort of starts with the framework and then dives into all of the different parts rather than like culminating with the framework, which I think is a clever way of doing it, because you have that framework as the anchor throughout the book. So
right, yeah.
So if you are joining us for the read along, it is the 3rd edition that we're going to be going through. If you have the 2nd edition, you will have to, or the 1st edition, you will have to sort of upgrade to the 3rd. I'm going to read it on Kindle and I'm going to listen to it on Audible. So yeah. How are you reading it, Talana?
I've got my 2nd edition. I've ordered my 3rd. It should arrive any day. So I'm I like the heart. I make a lot of notes when I read. If you ever borrow one of my books, you'll get it into my brain when it comes to all of this. I make lots of little notes. But Liana also shared there that it offers online training courses, and the most sought after course is the soft skills, with communication being the #1. And it is because everything we do is with and through people, and that's about relationships, how we relate to, and the way we relate is how we communicate. Yeah. So it's a very interesting and very useful skill. And one I think that not many people take the time to step back and reflect on. They're so busy, wrapped up, and they just communicate the way they've been exposed to. It's wonderful to give yourself this gift of stepping out of your life and reflecting on the skills so that you go back into your day-to-day life with more awareness. And that's what we want to offer, and what we are offering, and starting next Thursday. And it's at lunchtime too. So the idea is you bring your lunch, and we will.
Come and eat your samis with us. I don't think Talana or I will be eating our samis because they would just be trying to train while you're eating a sandwich. But you guys are welcome to eat sandwiches during the session. And we do ask that for the sessions we have cameras on so that we can really engage with each other and get the fullness of the interaction. So that's the format of our sessions, short, sharp, 1 hour. The sessions will all be recorded. So if you sign up and you can't make one of them and you really wanted to catch it, they will be recorded and you'll have access to them for a couple of months after everything ends. And the opportunity to meet new people and network and learn from the experiences of others. I don't think there's a better way to read a book like this. Great, everyone. Talana, thank you so much. Everybody else?
Pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for coming and for your listening.
We'll catch you in a week's time at lunchtime. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.